We've talked about setting up your main character, and now it's time to talk about world building. Hello, extremely intelligent lambs, and welcome back to the Movie Night Review. I'll be your host today, Peter Ware, and today's topic will be on how the Batman perfectly set up Gotham. Let's get started. For those who this is their first video seen of mine, I've been talking about for the last month now how to create a good intro. I've been mainly talking about how to set up your main characters. We've been talking about this for a month now, and I feel like it's time we move on to the next step in our list of how to create your intros. First one being, of course, setting up your characters. Now, setting up the world. I'm going to be using the example of the Batman, because I feel this is a perfect example of how to set up a good world where you can see how dark it is and how, broken Gotham is. So, without further ado, let's jump in with our opening scene. For those who haven't seen this movie yet, this will contain spoilers for the first 12 or so minutes of the movie. So without further ado, let's get started. You see from the eyes of the killer, him watching over this mansion. He's watching over this little kid playing around, acting like he's a ninja. You can see his father playing around with him. We're almost 100% sure that is Bruce Wayne. Then it cuts to late that night, and you see the father walking around. And suddenly, behind him, you can see the killer standing in the shadows. When he suddenly jumps out, attacks the man, and kills him. What can we learn from this? It's pretty simple. What does this show? This shows that this version of Gotham is no playground. From the very opening scene, we see this family that seems like it's a loving family suddenly just gets ripped apart. We don't get to see most Batman movies use the example of Bruce Wayne's parents. But in this case, instead we see the mayor. Mainly because because people can suddenly get bored of seeing Bruce Wayne's parents die over and over again. So they decided they were going to do something different. But it also ties into the villain. I was first thinking of putting this under how to set up your villain, but I found a movie that I actually feel like is better with that. So that's why I decided when I started thinking over this, the first couple minutes of this movie, it can be used, as I talked about before in previous videos, this movie can be used in multiple categories for genres for movies, but it can also be used in multiple categories for how to set up your intros. It can be a great example of how to set up your main character. Eventually when I review this movie in full, the full thing, not going into as much depth as I am about these first 12 minutes, I can talk about why I think it's a great example of how to set up your character too, and how to set up your villain. But for right now, what can we learn from this opening moment? We can learn that, again, as I said before, we can learn that Gotham's not a safe place. It's not just some playground. We can learn that the security, and even the rich, the people high up, can easily get killed. You can see the security guard just sitting there in his chair sleeping. You clearly, it's a corrupt city, but not just that, but it's even the mayor can be taken down. The mayor. And we're gonna figure out in a couple scenes from now that the mayor was not even a good person. And this is why the Riddler took him down. So, that's another big thing, right? We learn from these opening 12 minutes, that the higher people in Gotham is even corrupt. We're learning that this is a very much, as again, not a playground. This is a very disturbing place. So we're introduced to the villain. We're introduced to this idea that we're not in a safe little city anymore. We're not in the safe, sweet town. The opening song is Ave Maria, right? It's it's a big theme in this movie. It's also supposed to help calm you and feel oh, we'll feel safe. You mean just that choir chanting? But no, we're not safe. We're in Gotham. We're never going to be safe in Gotham. we're never going to be safe in Gotham. So let's move on to the next scene. This is a big scene for setting up the main character, but also continues on. The next scene, we see a crowd of people. It's Halloween night. You see people wearing costumes. You see them just wandering down the streets. Hundreds of people, not looking like the most pleasant people to hang out with. Then suddenly, you see one go into a store and rob the place. He walks out, but he looks into the shadows. Over this whole time, you hear Bruce Wayne's monologue talking about how he is the shadows and how he's everywhere. They always fear him because he could be anywhere. And you see that as a man, that robber, wearing his mask, looks into the shadows and sees nothing, but he's not sure. He's not sure if Batman's actually there or not. That he's constantly in fear. You see other people being in fear that the Batman could be around the corner. Then you flip to a gang in the metro system, sitting there laughing at a video of someone being harmed. Then you see them look up at a rich guy, and they decide to follow him. Then you follow them as they start beating up this guy. Again, as we said before in the previous, when then suddenly there's footsteps. And there is Batman. You see him walk up. He doesn't even talk. He just simply beats the guy. Beats the man to a pulp. Now you understand why. They simply ask him, "Who are you?"
I'm vengeance.
So, what can we learn from this scene? Again, as we talked about before with the playground thing, how we're simply not in a playground anymore. We're not simply in some small little town that you can do anything you want. We are now in Gotham. You can see that these gangs choose to harm whoever they want. Again, even the rich are not safe. No one is safe in Gotham. Everywhere, always, the criminals are looking behind their back, making sure Batman's not there. This is why Batman started this. Because he wants them to fear him. That's why Batman chose to dress him as a bat. He wants people to fear the bat, just like he does. And I think it does a great job. Now, let's talk about this, right? It sets up the character of... It doesn't just set up the character of Batman, but it also sets up this idea of, again, we're not in a playground. Not even the rich are safe. Batman can always be around the corner. The whole city runs on fear. Everyone around them is looking behind their back, worried about fear, worried about vengeance being behind them. Batman. Now, for this whole movie, he's barely being called Batman. He wants to go by vengeance until the end of the movie. It shows a really growth in the character, but we're not going to go into the whole movie right now. But the whole point is he's supposed to be vengeance, the thing that the villains fear the most. That they cannot see until it's there. The one that has no mercy on them, just beats them to a pulp. So, now we know that we're really dealing with a dark version of Gotham. A version that even the rich cannot survive. The mayors and people like that are very corrupt. It seems like, who can we trust? Who is in the city is good? Now we're going to flip to the next scene, the crime scene. In the crime scene, we see Batman arriving. We see the cops all confused why this vigilante is in their midst. Why is the Batman there? You see him trying to help solve this crime, but nowhere we can look. Nowhere. But everywhere they look, they just find more stuff that's wrong. He's missing a finger. The man is missing a finger. On the wall is written lies. And then there's the note. The note simply says, to the Batman. In the note. What does a liar do when he dies? Answer: he lies still. So what can we learn from this scene? We could just talk about how we learn more about the villain, but there's a big thing I want to talk about with this scene. We learn that the cops are bad enough at their job that they need to get a vigilante to come in and help solve their crimes with them. We're dealing with some corrupt cops in the system too. That we later figure out more about that. But we can tell that there's some cops that are corrupt. In this scene we also learn, again, as I talked about before, we talked about, as it was saying about, what does a liar do and all that. That's talking about the mayor. How he was the liar who covered up a bunch of stuff. As I talked about in the opening scene, how the mayor was actually not a good person. The mayor actually, did some bad stuff. He was not a good person. He, as the Riddler was saying, he lies a lot. He was a liar. Now we see with the cops, they don't like Batman. But Commissioner Gordon feels like he has to bring Batman in, because he has to have one cop at least. He needs to have someone who's actually going to want to solve this crime properly. Plus, also, we can tell that the villain has heard of the Batman, and he actually knows about the name the Batman, and not just vengeance. He knows of Batman. We can learn. So we're dealing with cops that cannot do their job properly. So that means that adds an extra layer of fear onto this. Because now we're dealing with unconfident police officers running our stations. That means crimes that get committed will just not get solved properly because the cops literally, again, they have to get a vigilante to help them solve these crimes because they can't figure out to solve them themselves. Kind of a sad, weird look. It's kind of a bad look. It's kind of a bad look. But, so that's the main thing we can learn from that scene. Is that not just is this not a playground from the last two scenes, but the cops are not confident enough to actually solve these crimes, and they need to get vigilantes like Vengeance or the Batman in to solve these crimes for them. So this is what we learned from this opening moments of the Batman. We learned that the big thing this shows is how Gotham is run on fear. How it is no longer, it's not the simple playground of most superhero movies. This is a dark place. This is not like most superhero movies where they have a fun-loving city and all. Even with other versions of Batman, even if you watch the Dark Knight trilogy, while Gotham is not the best, it's not terrible. It's more like New York City or something like that. This version of the Gotham is just outright terrifying. It feels like they did the whole job for the movie. You never really see Gotham is a place you would ever want to be. Like the other versions of Gotham, I would love, but I could live there. I could easily live there. Same with in the era with Stalin City and different shows like that, right? They all have the problem of the world is. It's okay. I could live in that version of Gotham. I could live in that version of Stalin City. You get it. But in this version, you can't, because the fact of the matter is, it's too dark. It's a place that you don't want to be, and it's a really good job. What we can learn, it's a really good job with just it does a really good job with setting up. This is the version of Gotham. This is what I'm talking about when I say how you should set up your world build, right? In these opening minutes of this movie, you really see how Gotham works, how Gotham operates, how Gotham works, how Gotham operates, how it runs on fear. You really see this place, and you really get a good glimpse of it, right? And this is the perfect world building, right? We can talk about other movies too when it comes to this stuff. We're not going to talk about it right now, but the point is, this is great world building because it shows where it shows exactly in the opening moments of this movie, you already know where you're at. You know this is where you're going to spend the movie at. If this is not the movie you want to watch, turn it off, because the fact of the matter is this is not the movie you're not going to enjoy the rest of the movie. Do not, when you're dealing with hooks, do not hook them into a loving place, a flower meadows and stuff like that, and then suddenly just rip them out of it so that you can, have your dark movie while not having to deal with the issue of. So you can draw people in and then deal with the darkness. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure they understand this is the movie you're getting into. You're going to get into a dark movie, and this is exactly what this movie does. It does a great job of showing for the whole movie that's Gotham. But you know what it also does? It does a great job setting up this is the world it is. This is how it is, and this is how it's always going to be, right? But then for the movie, you get to say, Batman gets to say, no, I can change this. My job is to change this. And actually, this is the whole thing about this movie is he's like, what am I actually doing to help this city? How am I actually helping the city? It seems like it's almost the same way that it was. Almost the same way as it was when I started. How am I making a difference? Right? How am I making a difference? And through this movie, he realized he can't be vengeance. He has to become the Batman. So, that's the big thing, right? We learn from this movie on how to set up a world and how you need to make sure if you're going to have a movie that's talking about a dark world, a dark place, you have to make sure you start saying, this is where we're going to be. This is the dark place we're going to be. And if it's going to be a lighthearted movie, start a lighthearted movie. If this is how a comedy started, it would make no sense, right? Because now you just set up this murder mystery and then suddenly just jump to this comedy movie. It wouldn't work. The same way. It's the same way. You have to set up the world you're going to be in, because this is what, it's your intro. It's what sets the characters in. It's what puts the people in the seats. If someone's flipping through the channels, this is what they're going to see. If someone goes into a movie theater and they're going to start watching this is what's going to help them decide whether they want to get up or leave. If you wait until the end of the movie or halfway through the movie to suddenly have this dark twist, it's not going to work that well. You might be able to get people to stay there for long enough, but that's where you get into the problem of the difference between good storytelling and just storytelling that will get people in. We will talk about this later about the difference between good storytelling and storytelling just draw a profit. There's a difference. We should still strive for good storytelling more than we should strive for making money off of it. So anyways, thank you guys for checking in on this video. It was very enjoyable to make this video. At the point of recording this video, we just reached 20 subscribers, and I thank you for that. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. You guys are awesome. Hopefully the channel keeps growing. Again, subscribe, turn on notifications, share with your friends. It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to have a bigger group of people being able to see it, and more people reacting to these videos, and more people being able to see them, and more creative minds we can spark. Spark those creative minds. I might put that on a t-shirt, you never know. Anyways, guys, so thank you guys for watching. I actually might be putting out a video on Sunday or something like that, quickly talking about, because James Gunn just released his lineup for movies, for his DC movies that are coming out, and I'm gonna probably put out a reaction video to that and just tell you what my thoughts are on that. So please subscribe so you can see that video when it comes out. Overall, thank you guys for watching. This has been the Movie Night Reviewer, Peter Wary, signing off.